I'm going to start with a story. Speaking to a grandmother in rural Tennessee, and she was taking care of her 11-year-old granddaughter. So she wakes up, she walks into her room, the bed's empty. She looks around, there's no note, there's nothing. And if your heart's not racing right now, should be. She calls 911. Detective arrives, no sign of force, there's nothing, except one thing that he remembered. There's a flock camera just down the street.
That's what he remembers. He doesn't remember if there's violent criminals in the neighborhood. He doesn't look to see if there's predators in the neighborhood. He just goes, man, my first thought when a child is missing, there's a flock camera right down the street. Yeah, keep selling it to me. All right, let's listen to more of this.
So he pulls out his phone and runs a search for the night and finds one car. He runs that tag, and it's his worst nightmare. It's a registered sex offender. So he logs into Flock, and he's looking for this car, and he sees the car is traveling down I-75, and if you're not familiar with Tennessee and Georgia, that's the connecting state.
Wait a minute. It's his worst dream, it's a registered sex offender? Why don't they just get rid of the registered sex offenders and not be having sex offenders in our neighborhood? So Flock's going to be the answer to a continuing problem that we don't solve the problem. So they're going to be like Flock is the keep it going with the politically profitable problems. The camera will keep you safe. So a problem can happen and we can loop back to it on film to trace it instead of not having the issue in the neighborhood or the community in the first place. Okay, let's keep listening. This is getting good.
It's the highway. The person's on the highway. The detective doesn't know what to do, so he does what every hero does as he moves into action. He jumps in his car and races down I-75. As he approaches the interstate line, he sees the vehicle. Violent struggles pursues, and at the end, he hears crying. And the girl's in the back. She's bound, but she's alive. They went on to go search the suspect's house, and the nightmare got scarier. Everything one would need to not only assault, but dispose of the body was there. Now that girl's alive today because the detective had two things. He had a license plate and he had a direction to travel. This, for me, is one of thousands of stories I sadly hear about every day in America.
He had a license plate and a direction to travel. No, the girl would be fine if they didn't let the sex offender out, the child predator, the rapist, the sex traffickers, the diaper sniffers out in the community and actually punished real problems. A camera isn't the solution.
I started Flock 9 years ago because of this exact type of problem. See, I live in a city called Atlanta, and I was frustrated. Crime felt too easy to get away with. It didn't make sense to me that you could steal someone's car and have an 80% chance of getting away with it. Or you could kill someone and have a 50% chance of getting away with it. So I kept pushing, and eventually I found a major in the Atlanta Police Department who told me, Mr. Langley, it's not apathy, it's not effort, it's evidence. If all we had was a license plate, we could catch these people. So I did what engineers did. I built a license plate reading camera. It sounds simple, but I called two of my best friends from Georgia Tech, and we built this camera. He said, you have to have the license plate. So we did that.
Yeah, okay. All right. This is why engineers annoy me. They annoy me. It doesn't matter what field they're in. I did what an engineer would do. I'm not going to solve the problem. I'm going to tell you I'm the solution to the problem and probably make it worse and make it a bigger issue and a thing. And I'm going to make it tug at your heartstrings about it and scare you with stuff. I'm an engineer. All right, this guy already sounds like a dinghy. Let's go.
Put it up in my neighborhood, and about 2 months later, we solved our first crime. And that was the beginning of Flock. And now, as you've heard, the company has grown quite a bit since then. We do more than cameras. We build cameras now. We build drones. We build audio detection devices. We build software that connects it all together. And the concept is actually still this simple 9 years later. Car drives by. We do what we call a vehicle signature. We look for the make, the model, the color, anything a detective would notice. And then you catch the bad guy. And that's what I thought we were doing, right? And then I was speaking to a police chief not too far from here in Washington, and he said, no, Mr. Langley, this is more than about fighting crime. This is as transformational as DNA. And candidly, I was confused. It's a camera. What's the rub? And he said, well, look, let me explain to you how policing used to work. Historically, policing is a subjective exercise. You drive around suspicious neighborhoods looking for suspicious activity, and there is the root of the bias. What's suspicious to me is different than her and different than him. That doesn't seem very good. And so the chief was explaining to me that now with Flock, it's objective. That is a stolen car. That is a car that has a child in the back of it. That is the car that has an amber alert or a silver alert. So we've moved the way policing works. It's pretty incredible. But let me give you a real life example. So now we're going to go all the way to Colorado.
You know what? You know what with this? So he's telling us that the police chief himself is saying that law enforcement is a problem and doesn't do a good job and is now outdated and going to need to be and have to be replaced with cameras. So cameras are the solution to fighting crime, not actually fighting crime or treating criminals like criminals and punishing criminals like criminals. The camera's the answer. The camera. Okay, let's, what's the rub? Who is this guy?
This is a 911 call. It's a Levi's outlet. And this might be the most important thing I say all day. The 911 is describing the getaway car as a white van spray painted black and blue. Here's a pro tip. If you're gonna commit a crime, do not spray paint your vehicle. Do it in a Camry or Corolla, something simple. Right, so the 911 call comes in. They have this van, so they go into our product and search for a vehicle. They can type in anything they want. White van, spray paint,
now he's
anything
giving
that makes
tips
sense.
out.
Now, what's cool is it turns every single camera into a detective. Now, every camera in the city is looking for this white van. The second thing they do is they launch a drone. So just like Adam would launch the drone up in the air, the drone's flying at 400 feet, 65 miles per hour, trying to find this white van. Now, a camera eventually finds them, drone goes over. Now, in a normal reaction, as a law enforcement officer, you have to assume the worst case scenario. Is this person armed? Probably. Is the public at risk? Probably. So you come in hot. But with a drone overhead, flying at 400 feet, the suspect has no idea. Officers can respond with precision and with calmness. So from start to finish in 21 minutes, from a 911 call at a Levi's outlet, tracking the car all the way to a second outlet, there was an arrest. Now, if you zoom this all the way out, some of the biggest cities in America, some of the biggest companies in America rely on Flock to keep them and their employees and their citizens safe.
Real cute, real neat. I like that. And he's selling at a Levi's outlet. So he's really emphasizing on that. In Colorado, where we live, yay. Doesn't tell us what the crime was. What the guy do? Steal some jeans? Did he just steal some pants? They didn't tell us what the crime is. There's some stuff in here where he's like leaving. He likes to leave stuff out if you start listening to this guy more. He leaves a lot of stuff out. In 21 minutes, what'd you do? Recover 100 pairs of Levi jeans or something? What was the crime? Oh, well, we can see, and then the drone, 400 foot high, and the air with the drone, and a whole thing with all this other stuff. Okay. All right, let's listen to some more of the big sales pitch here from this dingy little nerd.
2 years ago, San Francisco was in a crisis, as many of you probably know. They deployed everything Flock has. License plate reading cameras, drones, video cameras, our software that ties it all together. And Mayor Lurie described this fusion of sensors as a transformation in public safety. And if any of you live in the city, you know that it feels safe all of a sudden. Crime is down 25%. Homicide is the lowest rate it's been in 70 years.
I don't think it feels safe in San Francisco. I think this guy's selling really hard. You know what it makes me think of? He's like, oh, San Francisco, it's a big net of sensors and blah, blah, blah. And this mayor told me something good. Remember that what was it, Batman Begins, I think? One of the Christian Bale Batmans, and he's got all the cell phones linked up and it's scanning everybody. And he's like, I have to destroy this because peeping on everybody constantly is pretty disturbing. All right, what else we got? What the flock else do we have?
So this all seems really good, right? Well, while the company's scale has grown and a lot of things have changed for me, one thing's been very consistent. There is inevitably some part of this audience today who's saying, I don't know, this snitching ass startup kind of doesn't make sense to me.
No, what everybody's saying is mass surveillance and turning innocent people into criminals is pretty jacked up. Stopping real crime is actually something everybody wants done. But they have China, they have Europe. You see what it is with mass surveillance. Where does it lead to? It leads all over to different directions and stuff. It's a slippery slope with this. It gets out of control. Look, I'll be straight. You want to put a flock camera? Start back over at the very beginning of this freaking nerd's whole thing with this whole what the flock are we going to do? Okay, well, if there is a sex offender, okay, they could probably have a flock camera right there at their door pointing at their stuff then. They're not people, so screw them. They violated someone else's civil rights. They don't have any civil liberties or rights. So let's hear what else this fella has to do for something that's being put in everywhere that hasn't been voted on, people. At least I don't hear anybody's been voting on this. It hasn't been presented to communities, neighborhoods, cities, counties, or states and been put on a ballot. I've never seen it on the ballot, and I'm not hearing about it hitting ballots to see if we want it or not. If we, the people, have decided. Go ahead. Let's listen to more.
And this was our first ever press coverage, and I was so proud. I framed this, and my poor mother was like, "Why are you framing this?" And I'm like, because it's a reminder that when you work on important things, some people will disagree, and that's okay. It means you should work harder. And so when I talk to these opponents, and I've got to know many of them over the years now, they tend to have three big issues with flock. Whether this is a constitutional violation, what does this mean to my privacy, and are you building mass surveillance? These are pretty good questions. Let's hit the easy one, constitutional. 30 court cases over the last 2 years, every single one of them has unanimously said, this does not violate the Constitution. Why? We're not tracking a person's in real time. We are tracking a fixed location. Not a lawyer, but I'm gonna go with the courts. So I'm gonna check the box on Constitution. Second one's privacy. This is actually a really good question because 9 years ago, I did not have a degree in criminal justice. I had no experience. I was an engineer that just wanted to build a product to help fight crime. But when we sat there and said, what if we are really successful? What could go wrong? So we started looking at what the industry did. So the first thing we asked was, what about data ownership? Who should own this data? This is a lot of data. Historically, companies, my competitors, own the data, and then they resell that data for other use cases. In Flock's model, the customer always owns the data.
Okay, whoa. The customer owns the data. So let's think about it. Okay, so he's going to do the thing, and he's already kind of half mentioned it. The old First Amendment, cameras out, you can record. You're a moving body entity, body cameras, all these types of things. I honestly don't even like red light cameras. I think they're ineffective, and they don't do anything, and they don't solve nothing. They're just a bigger problem than anything else. But this is a moving person and someone doing something and filming things, whether it's a body cam, cell phone camera. You're out there moving out and about and around. This is stuff permanently fixed and put into positions and spots all the time, every time. And you don't know because, let's not lie, your bedroom window technically, legally, is public view. They're going to run with that part too. What if you leave your curtain open one day and you're just out there changing? You don't know, throwing a shirt off and on real quick, going to the next job because I live in the third most expensive state for some reason. There's a population less than LA. So it gets real expensive and have to do a lot of work all the damn time. But he also said something on there too. The customer owns the data. What does that mean? The police department owns the data. The mayor owns the data. The city owns the data. The county owns the data. The state owns the data. Don't forget with all this stuff that it's your money. It's my money. It's our money, our tax money. So really it should mean we own the data, if there is any data. So let's listen a little bit more to this and see where this leads off to with the thing. Because Mr. Man, I was just an engineer and I'm going to listen to the courts. Remember, Flock, if I remember right, it's the tech bros. Axum's like the, BlackRock and all that stuff. It's all the same nonsense. It's just they're both kind of competing. Let's hear what else we got going on. What the flock else?
So if you live in San Francisco, it's San Francisco's data, not Flock's. The second was retention. Well, how long should this data exist? Historically, companies in this industry stored the data in perpetuity. That seems to me more like a liability than an asset. So we delete the data at 30 days. If cities and states have laws that say it should store longer, we do that. Shorter, we do that. The third is around accountability. With everything that's powerful should come heightened responsibility. Every action inside a Flock is audited and stored in perpetuity. So every action an officer takes. And sadly, 3 officers were arrested last year for abusing this system. Now, I think if anything, that speaks very poorly on the law enforcement industry, but it is a reminder that when you build tools to hold people accountable, it starts to work. And then the last one, and this is the most interesting to me. If you go to a place like the UK, there's 45 police departments. You go to Australia, there's 8. France, there's 2. And does anyone want to guess how many police departments are in America? You're way off. 18,000.
18,000? He just named off European places that are tiny. Australia, I think, go ahead and Google it real quick. Australia's a decent size, but most people live over there by the coast in like one area, and the rest of it's just like empty and barren. And they populate like the Chinese do. They just kind of pick a little area and that's it. And then he's like, oh, a bunch of European countries that are super tiny. Okay, look, Texas is bigger than most of European countries. California is gigantic to European countries. I'm sure. We'll Google it, check it. You let me know. I'm sure both those are bigger than France. Let's go. Let's see what else this nerd has to say.
Duh. Okay, this is the problem. You literally can commit a crime in city A and drive to city B, and they're like, oh, who are you? You leave state A to state B, and they're like, oh, we have no record of you. This entire problem is a data problem. These cities have not historically worked together. They moved to the cloud less than 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And so one of the biggest criticisms of Flock is that we create this national network of data that allows local law enforcement to work together. It's a uniquely American problem.
You know what, too? He did say, what did he say? 3 law enforcement officers got arrested. So it's interesting he words it that way. That means there's probably more that were abusing the system. That's just 3 that were caught and punished and actually had some kind of consequence because it was probably some freaky, weird stuff. I'm a big advocate. Not all cops are good. Not all veterans are good. You know, not all ex-cons are bad. Just kind of watch that. It's based on the person and the individual. But only 3 were arrested. That means there's probably a whole bunch that abused it, and they know abused it, but those are the only 3 that made the news or something. Let's listen a little bit further here.
Third question that I often get, right? So we covered the Constitution, we covered privacy, now the big one, surveillance state. Is this a creation of a new surveillance state? You know, look, I think everyone in this room probably has a cell phone. And what if I told you that someone with mediocre computer software skills could build a product that tracks your exact location in real time down to a few feet? Because all of you use Google Maps and Uber and any device that has access to your location. And so I think about the tooling that we ask our local law enforcement to use, and we give them a weapon, a gun, a taser, yet we're afraid to give them a camera that reads a license plate on a public road. I'm not saying that it's not a choice. I'm just saying that for me, the trade-off is I don't know how many more 11-year-old girls need to be kidnapped or human trafficking rings or silver alerts or amber alerts we have to go through before we say enough is enough. Now, the beauty of America, though, is that every city, state, county gets to pick. It's not my choice. I live in Atlanta. I vote. You should vote. The challenge is that when you decrease surveillance and in effect decrease safety, it impacts certain parts of the community more than others. If you are affluent in South Africa, you have 9-foot walls.
Okay, all right, but he's doing this thing again. This is America. Let's talk really realistic with this stuff. The average person, I do believe, probably breaks the law a few hundred times a week. And we're talking like stupid laws, whatever. You know, you weren't in the crosswalk across the street. The light wasn't this color, and you cruised through a stoplight. You know, there's some goofy stuff with this. And then what they're going to turn out probably doing with this is you're just going to get a bunch of tickets in the mail or delivered by one of the drones that pals up with this stuff. And you're not going to talk to anybody. They're like, it's on film, you're done. Then he does another thing. He compares us to Africa. I don't care South Africa. The only 2 South places in the world that are better to be in is South Korea and South Africa. But for crying out loud, he goes, oh, look, they got a bunch of surveillance and stuff. Go over there to one of those places and see how it is. And this is America. We like our freedom. We like to not be bothered. And we love to actually, the everyday person, watch criminals and problems actually be punished like they should. All right? He said, we don't want another 11-year-old girl to be taken. Good. Start bringing the death penalty forward for all the diaper sniffers, rapists, sex traffickers. all the pedophiles. Start punishing the crimes, and they won't be out there. If you're strict on the problem won't be there, and a camera won't be the answer. Okay, this is going to be a slippery slope of just turning regular, everyday people into criminal. And they do this already. They turn us into criminals. They try to find something. And then a camera, someone don't like you, you're going to be something. You might be chewing some brand of gum that's like against the law and you don't know, or smoke a cigar that ain't supposed to be here because someone gave it to you and you're just smoking a cigar to hang out with somebody, but you did it on film, and those cigars are illegal and not supposed to be here. So you're going to be in trouble. If someone doesn't like you and they want to look, especially someone in law enforcement, we all violate everything. We're a country of rebel rousers. That's how we were founded. They will find something that will get you in trouble just because they don't like you. It's a slippery slope, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, let's listen to some more.
You have private security guards. There are 600,000 private security guards in South Africa, more than the military and police combined. So if you are affluent in South Africa, it is a beautiful place to live. You are crime-free. And if you are not affluent, crime is simply the cost of being alive. Now, if you transpose that to a place like Tokyo, beautiful city, there's a few dozen homicides a year. Whether you go to work at 2 a.m. or 8 a.m., you feel safe.
No. This guy sounds like he said, that was like the nicest I don't like America I've ever heard in my life. That was the nicest traitor-sounding nonsense I've ever heard. America's this very weird, but you know what? You know why it's different in Tokyo, in Japan? He only named Tokyo. He didn't want to get the whole country, which is barely the size of California, I believe. But think about it. Our states are big as most countries are around the world. But what did he say? Oh, well, they only have 12 or whatever homicides until. Do you understand that that's culturally a different place Tokyo is? There's things acceptable and not acceptable in Tokyo. Things not acceptable there that are acceptable here, and vice versa. These are different cultures, different heritages, different everything else. He's not comparing apples to apples, orange to oranges. He's doing a lot of this little like, wouldn't you like it that way? Actually, what I got to say to him is he likes it that way. He can move anywhere else he'd like, and that was the most. Ooh, that was the fluffiest I hate America I've ever heard from anybody trying to sell me on some crap. Go ahead.
It just doesn't matter. And so America is this like very interesting conundrum in the middle. We have the law enforcement infrastructure we need to be safe, yet we haven't made, to me, the most important decision as a society, which is that safety should not be a privilege. Safety should just be a right. It should not matter the color of your skin, your political affiliation, or your income level. Everyone, in my opinion, deserves the right to be safe. Thank you very much.
I'm not going to clap for that. It should be a right. Do you know how many rights are violated and stuff and on film already? It doesn't matter. He's absolutely incorrect and wrong. This will be used against people for political gains, just because you disagreed with somebody in a political position, somebody that you don't like, a police officer. Look, I ain't telling you to flip off the cops, but if you flip off a cop, he's probably going to look at your license plate and try to find something and turn you into a whole big crime on something that's technically freedom of speech. Don't go flipping off cops and making problems where there's none to be had. But you get what I'm saying with this. And this guy's using the whole guise of, race, creed, religion, color, ethnic group, sexual orientation, blah, blah, blah. It shouldn't matter. It needs to be a right. As he's sitting there just trying to violate freedoms of others under the guise of safety and prosperity. Look, nobody's going to make you be safer or more prosperous than you. Okay? You know how safe you need to be, and you know how prosperous you want to. The system ain't going to do it. Cameras, Flock, Exxon, a company, a police department, a fire department. None of this stuff is going to make any of that to where you're safer. You're going to make yourself safe because nobody cares about you and your freedoms, your rights, your liberties like you. So this guy's, I ain't clapping at the end of his little nonsense.
So interesting, persuasively argued. But when you sell these systems to law enforcement, how strongly do you feel you have the right to limit what they can do? Because you've made a powerful case for these things used the right way, but everyone here can also imagine them used the wrong way. Here's a protest. The cameras do things that someone's cell phone doesn't do. You can detect in the end, we're in a
Yeah.
world where you can detect individuals, etc. Are you able to restrict what they do, or is it just you sell the system and then it's over to you, act within the law, my friends?
Yeah, so actually I want to answer your question in two parts. The first is, I was having this debate with our team because people were asking, why do some people dislike Flock but not these other things? I said, because you can see Flock. I guarantee you, if you go to our website and look at what our camera looks like, and you go back home, if you live in America, you will see our cameras everywhere. And they're easy to spot. But your cell phone, you're oblivious to all the tracking that exists online, so you forget about it. But to answer your question, we do have restrictions. Now, obviously, there's this thing called the Constitution, which we care a lot about. There's state law, there's local law, but then there's things that we just don't feel comfortable with. And so we do set in kind of our own policy framework. And then just like most technology companies, we have a full team of attorneys who actually think about this stuff full time, because our customers are just not that far the adoption curve.
I mean, how often do you or someone on your team hear of something that is being done with your technology that makes you uncomfortable?
3 times last year.
Whoa, 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 whoa. So he only heard the 3 times of the 3 cops being arrested, and then he like dismisses and minimizes the Constitution. We got this little thing called the Constitution. But then he super gets extra with, I have this whole team of lawyers. That should be the biggest red flag of everything I've ever heard on this so far. Listen, we have a large team of lawyers. Look, it's a device, a tool. The first thing that's going to happen is going to get abused by a bunch of stalkers and weirdos and idiots and ding-dings and power-tripping dum-dums. All right? 3 times only in a year? I would beg to differ. Out of the, what do you say, 18,000 police departments in the country, right? Was it 18,000? I don't know. Whatever he said on it, it was a big old number. Only 3 people did anything wrong with it. Yeah, okay. All right, let's keep listening to his BS answer.
Like, to me, it is horrible that in the case, because I'll pick on my own home state, because I live in Georgia, there was a police chief in northern Georgia that used Flock to track an ex-partner. It's horrible. But then I'm reminded that the GBI used Flock's audit log to investigate that chief, and he's now in jail. And so I think the thing I think about to your question is, like, if Flock did not exist, he was probably a bad person. He was going to do this one way or another. And so I look at the 1 million plus cases and go, okay, this is a trade-off that I can make, but that's my choice.
You've got such a powerful technology, and it's very cool to hear you open to having these discussions.
Yeah.
Garrett, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
This stuff is ridiculous. So the guy that, I don't know where he's from, somewhere Europe, obviously, with the accent, somewhere not here, that's already probably accustomed to having a bunch of cameras watch everything he does, probably doesn't see any problem with it, and he might be pre-selected at this TED Talky thing. So this, to me, appears to be a very dog and phony show. It's just a presentation. I'm so grateful that you're up to have these kinds of conversations. It is highly unlikely anybody would say something like that. So it's under the guise of transparency with the thing that invades your privacy. Let's listen to more.
That was a heavy one, right? Like, we're all facing this question with ubiquitous surveillance. And look, think about it. It's totally legal to film in public places, but now we have these AI-enabled cameras that are tracking every single person or vehicle that drives by. And then when something goes down, you have a drone that from really high altitude can zoom in and track a suspect. Like, this is insane technology that exists today. This is obviously a controversial topic, and people are on different sides of this. But at TED, we want to hear arguments on both sides. Most people want to live in a world that is free from crime. At the same time, nobody wants to live in a perpetual panopticon where every move that you do is surveilled. And a lot of the double-edged nature of this technology comes down to the people that are using the tools, right? Like, who gets the keys to the castle and how are they deploying this technology? The best thing we can do is draw awareness to these issues and have a conversation around it. Because the technology is one thing, but the question about how we utilize it in day-to-day society is a collective conversation. So regardless of where you fall on the issue, we want to hear from you. So let us know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed.
You don't ever, ever, ever surrender your freedom for false promises of safety and prosperity. You just don't do it. Look, we don't want crime. We got that. I heard it. He said it like very elegantly. Some of the worst people I've ever met in my life are some of the best speakers with the most elegant and beautiful words I've ever heard in my life. You ever talk to any of these like predators and stuff out in the community or society or not even know that they are? They speak, a lot of them speak pretty well. A lot of them fluff you up and say a lot of nice things. A lot of problems and bad people speak very well and very nice. They're not like me. They don't curse. They're not out in it direct going, no, that's a bunch of BS. That's a bunch of crap. This, they're selling you on safety. They're tugging at your heartstrings and your emotions. You need to stop and rationally think what's going on with what. How do we really solve these problems of crime? To me, I'm not gonna surrender a bit of my freedom. Not a tiny bit for any promises of safety and prosperity. Think about it this way. I think about it like this. This is going to be stuff and tools that are put into a system that has jails, prisons, and they can't stop the crime in an enclosed system that's already mass surveyed, right? They get weapons in there, drugs in there, and everything else. Do you think out in the open real world with cameras is going to make it any safer, or just violate your rights, liberties, and freedoms and have you just observed all the time? And if someone doesn't like it, they're going to look you up and be like, crap, they just just picked your nose, scratched your nose. It turned into a symbol of something. You did this. It's against the law. You said bomb in a theater. Oh, my God. Follow it, and we got to do something because we don't like this person for XYZ reason. This is a whole thing that can just go downhill really, really quick, and you do not bend a knee, limp a wrist, or anything. None of these topics, none of these cameras being put up have been put to the vote to the people to be in our communities. Our tax money funds it. These types of things should be put to us to decide. It should be out there to ask. No, I do not want little children to be abducted, raped, buried, killed, massacred, sex trafficked. I don't want any of that. I don't want elderly people wandering around and getting lost either. I don't want any of that. That is not what I'm saying, and I know that's what's going to be said. Oh, well, you don't want it to be safer. I do. But if you start punishing the criminals on the thing for all the predatory stuff, we wouldn't have the problems that need to be out. Okay? I'm a big advocate for what? That's right. Rapists, pedophiles, sex traffickers, diaper sniffers, death penalty upon conviction, get rid of the problem. They violated somebody's civil liberties and rights. They have none now. They don't want to be civilized. They're not people anyways. It's a bunch of evil in the flesh. Get rid of them. Done. The elderly people, yes, as a community and a society, the ones that wander off or get confused or lost, yes. We need to make sure that we are there for them as a community, not leaving our elderly people behind to get lost and wander around a community or get hurt, okay? That's 100%. This isn't the answer, people. This isn't the answer. Remember, if you got to do bad, do it to worse. And if you want it better, be better.